Hey, folks, and welcome to the show. It is Counterclipping show number 99. Next week is show 100, and we will have a giveaway when that happens. So we didn't have a show last week, although if you didn't catch it, please do watch the live stream that Mo's Game Table and I did on his channel. It went about 2 hours and 45 minutes and was really great content. And I do not mean that sarcastically. It was actually really great content. I'll talk about the reason for the coughing in a few minutes. So thanks everybody for coming. I think I've got all the social media stuff out. We'll talk a little bit about that too. And if I seem maybe not exactly razor sharp tonight, I'll get to that too. For those who don't know, I imagine most of you do. So what do we got going on? We are drinking Lefroy Quarter Cask, which I've already put on the shelf. Turns out COVID, not great for your Scotch sensibilities. I can't taste a thing. This is Lefroy Quarter Cask. Tastes like water. So probably not going to be drinking a lot of Scotch for the next couple of weeks. I might find some fine corn whiskey or something like that. So we are clipping Absolute Victory, procured at Compass Expo. There's not going to be an unboxing of it because I opened it at Compass Expo, but it's a very interesting looking game designed by Ben Madison and Wes Ernie. For those who took a look at Death in the Trenches and think that looks interesting, this is like that, but World War II and more. Event-driven World War II. The maps represent the entire planet. This is a great time to switch to Crown Royal. It comes with a free dice bag. Actually, you buy the dice bag, it comes with a free bottle of shitty whiskey. So tonight's topic is the best of the gamers. We have a whole bunch of other business to get to, however, before we can even approach that. So let me first of all say hi to Abraxas MF, Andrew Frankie, Chad Kennedy, Charles Latour, Christopher Prest, Cyber Field Marshall, David Imperato, David Zell, Doug Blayart, Ed Holtzman, Fast Hines, Greg Grant, Iggy Cricktal, James Whitmer, Joe Faust from sunny and blisteringly cold Northeast Ohio, John C., who is back in the sunny Philippines, John Raw, glad that you made it back safe and COVID-free. John Clark, Ken X or Ken 10, Lee Grant, Lynn Pratt, Matt Davidson, Matt Taylor, Meandering Mike, Michael Schmaus, Michael Simon, Rick Cox, Vince Ree, William Boardman, and once again, and Clark Commando 1983. Mark, welcome back to the stream. If I sound a little nasal, I guess I guess we'll cover this first. So we went to Compass Expo. We left on pretty early Wednesday morning. That was last Wednesday. Nope, sorry, it was the Wednesday before. At this point, we got there, had a great time. Everything was fabulous. Got home, felt progressively worse for a couple of days, and then tested positive for COVID. So if those of you who heard that there was an attendee who tested positive for COVID at Compass Expo, because John Krantz sent that email out, thank you, John, for doing that. If you're watching, that was me. So could have happened anywhere. Didn't necessarily happen at the convention itself, but people should know about it to take their whatever precautions they feel are necessary. Not sure I saw anybody wearing a mask at any point in there, and I definitely was not. So I do have a video in the works that's going to be the Compass Games Expo After Action report, but because of COVID and feeling like pretty garbage for the last several days, that video is not yet done. The loot video is done because I filmed that the night we got back. I filmed that Monday night. I filmed it first. So that's actually done and uploaded, but I want to get the after action report up first. Ed Holtzman, you are very welcome. Awesome that you found a game that you liked over at Columbia. They were big thanks to Columbia for the tremendous support for the Ardwulf's Lair 15th birthday. So for those who want to hear about the war, I'll talk more about this in the after action report. I did like it a lot. I think it jumped several places on my strategic level World War II list and is now number 3 on the strategic level World War II list. That's like games you can go buy from the publisher right now, as opposed to being weird old out of print stuff. It plays very clean. It's not a simple game, plays very cleanly. The rule book is excellent, and you can actually like use the scenarios and read the book to learn how to play the game, which for certain other games appears to be too much to ask. So I have a very high opinion of it. Now I haven't played the Pacific version yet, and of course you got to think. Many designers have found adapting their World War II in Europe mechanics to the Pacific to be a difficult challenge, and not all have succeeded. So I definitely want to check the and try the Pacific as well. WIF is number one, yes. At the moment, WIF, the war, and probably Axis Empires is number three. World at War, I think, is number four. I don't think it's a bad game. It's just it's a lot. It's a lot. The War's number two. WIF is number one, though. Death in the Trenches looks really neat, by the way, and I immediately I opened it up and I'm like, ooh, this looks like Absolute Victory. So and you know, I've been trying to get, well, not really trying to get, I've been dragging my feet on buying this game for a long time. So we're going to get that done. I will say that I definitely want to play the war again. I don't have anything specific on the calendar for that at this time. So what the hell even is this? Anyway, before we get to all that, for those who don't know, Twitter's in a bit of a pickle right now. That's been my primary social media outlet for quite a while. My social media footprint is almost 98% wargaming anyway, with occasional other nonsense. And I am now losing more followers than I am gaining on a week-to-week basis. And it's not that people are unfollowing, it's that people are deactivating their accounts. So last week I had, I think, three people who unsubscribed, which is pretty routine, right? And 18 people who deactivated their accounts. So I intend to stay on Twitter. However, let's say that there are now concerns about the long-term viability of Twitter as a platform. So there are backup plans afoot. The easy backup plan, of course, is Facebook, because I'm there already. This show is being broadcast live on Facebook. But I've also signed up for Mastodon. There is a wargaming server for Mastodon. You can go to Board Game Geek and look at the Mastodon wargaming thread for that. You'll need an invite to sign up for it. To sign up for anything, if you just go to Mastodon and try and sign up with no server or invite, you'll be confused, because I was. But if you have an invite, you click on the link, fill out the stuff, and verify your email, and that's it. So I don't know if Mastodon is the new Twitter or not. Right now, it's the backup plan, and I can tell you that it's pretty flooded with activity and applicants because of the Twitter's continued flailing. So we'll see what happens. Like I said, I intend to continue with Twitter as long as I can, because I got a lot of followers there. A lot of people keep up with me on Twitter. So for anybody interested, there's a link to my Mastodon thing in the video description. That has been added as of today, and it's not going to necessarily, well, we'll see if that stays. I made a link tree too. I might switch those up. So all right, so we got that taken care of. There's been a GMT update this week, which we are going to need to cover. This was released on November 18th, so 3 days ago. So it's pretty fresh news. And there's also let me do the Kickstarter first. It's not really a Kickstarter. Let me hit over there. So this is Glory and Empire. This is Terry Doherty's new battalion level Napoleonic game. From Lock and Load Publishing. This is the crowdfunding campaign. There's a link to this in the video description as well. If you're interested in this looks very interesting. It's two small, this particular set is two small battles during the Peninsular War, so the part of the Napoleonic Wars that happened in Spain. And not sure Napoleon's there at either of these battles, actually, but Wellington is. I think I'm looking at Fuentes de Honoro. That's the battle I was actually reading about most recently. So don't quote me on any details on these relatively little-known battles. It's made its number very easily. I'm pretty excited about this. So if you are interested in this, take a look. And Eric over at Eric's Table, Napoleonic Battles, has an interview with Terry Doherty, the designer, if you want to hear more about that. And if you haven't seen it yet, check out my interview over on this channel with Eric. When was that? A couple of days ago, which I managed to get through live somehow, despite COVID and various technical problems resulting from buying shitty hardware. Um, we had, I think, a great discussion about Lava Tai. So, all right. So GMT monthly update. As usual, if you want to hear every word in the text, go to GMT's webpage and read it out loud yourself. I am going to hit the highlights. So SD HistCon happened at the same time as Compass Expo, actually, on Veterans Day weekend. That looks to have been a very successful event. The big news is that the GMT sale is on right now, and there's just a few more hours left in that sale. So if you're going to go push that button, now's not a bad time. And they've extended everybody the ability to buy 2 games at 50% off, as opposed to only the people who P500 ordered stuff buying as many games as they P500 ordered at 50% off. So so it's a good price. I ordered, what did I order? I ordered the Stalingrad 42 expansion, which is a thing that I had to cancel my order for because we bought a house. I ordered the Space Corp expansion. I actually like Space Corp. And I ordered a game from Hexasim, which was not at a discount. That was the Eagles of France Quatre Bras game, because I bought Ligny at Compass Expo. So I'm about to have about 4 games on Ligny and Quatre Bras if I have anything to say about it. So I'm already sounding really, really gravelly. That is probably going to continue. So John C says there's very little in the GMT catalog that he wanted, and I sympathize with that because I have everything that I wanted, other than those couple of things. And could I possibly have ordered more? Yeah, but I already spent a lot of money this month. I have spent very little on wargaming actually over the last 6 months or so, but I made up for that at Compass Expo too. So anyway, so sale's still on until something like 5 a.m. So midnight Pacific time. That's 3 a.m. Eastern time. So if you haven't gotten an order in and you want stuff, go do it now. Well, after the show, you want to do it after the show. So San Diego HistCon sounded great. A whole bunch of stuff happened there. Retail price increase on 18 India due to increase in the cost of wood, which I think we're all aware of. Oh yeah, let me mention that too. Hollandspiel is having their annual sale as well. So if you're interested in any of the stuff from Hollandspiel, they have quite a lot of really good stuff, and some of it is war games, and some of it's not, and some of it's still really good anyway. Well, we'll see if it's in the update, John. We will see. Commands and Colors reprints. Favorable financing. So GMT has once again found a sugar daddy for Commands and Colors. They won't tell us who that is, and I understand why, but that's the reality of Commands and Colors. Everything got reprinted previously using that method. So favorable financing is the way they call it. 2 new P500s. So let's talk about those in a minute here. This is the back of the box for the British Way. It's a new coin game. It's kind of a coin quad. It does look quite interesting. I do not know what that noise was. Give me 1 second. I have to answer a text about Lava Tai. Very good. Okay. All right. The British Way. That was actually Wargame related. Sorry about that. Islet looks like a neat sort of puzzle game. Not really my bag. But it is supposed to be very good a very good example of a game of its type. I don't want to sound cavalier and dismissive when I say that. It's not my thing. That said, I have bought some of Amabel's non-wargame things before and think they're really neat, just not that. All right, GMT1 update here. Bear Trap, Infernal Machine, In the Shadows, bunch of other stuff. People Power's getting pretty close, it sounds like. It's got a very sort of, well, let's see if the cover is in here. I think it is. Playtesters wanted for Battle Command, updated Vassal mod, blah, blah, blah. We've got some interviews with our very own Stigler, was interviewed by El Wargamero Novato, which is a fantastic name. I don't know what it is or what it means, other than there's probably the war game in there. But it sounds awesome. So, and of course, Stigler is a great interview. So check that out if you're interested. Herald on Games had another interview with Mark Herman. That happens, I believe, every other day. The Players Aid interviewed Herman Lutman about the Plum Island Horror, which again looks neat. I love Herman as a designer. This game is not going to be for me. Ardwulf interviews Space Empires, Jim Crone, which is a game I like a lot. GMT merchandise, blah blah blah. All right, P500 edition. So 18 EUS, that's Eastern US. It's an 18XX game. For those interested in 18XX games, check it out. Away Team and a Stalingrad 42 second edition. So that's great. I should probably check to see what the second edition changes are on that. But I have the first edition and I'm perfectly happy with it. Assuming I can find it, a couple of things have turned up missing. So Away Team is the interesting one here for me. This is a John Butterfield game. And it is a sort of a space exploration and adventure game in the spirit of the old Voyage and Wreck of the BSM Pandora back in the Ares magazine days. I kind of want to hear more about this before I actually push the button on it. But a lot of buttons have already been pushed on this. This has already made its number within a couple of days. John Butterfield is a reliably great designer, so I have no fears on that account. Just not sure I want to allocate the funds to it at this exact moment, but I probably will. Who's kidding? And there's a solitaire game. There's two different solitaire modes, and then a two-player game, in which you play competing expeditions to like explore strange new worlds and stuff. So this looks really neat. So if you're interested in that, check it out. Recent P500 editions, we've covered all this. We've covered that. I'm not going to zoom in on E18 EUS because I don't think that anybody wants me to. New P500s. A Next War series game comes to a new theater. There's been a bunch of different rumors about what that might be, but Meandering Mike, I do have a copy of that, and I don't know that I'm willing to sell it, to be honest. It actually looks like a pretty neat game. It is like a 5-player game or 4-player game or something like that. And yes, please thumbs up the video. Super chats are on. If you would like to have your comment highlighted, it helps support the channel, and it helps ensure I don't miss your comment. As I said, not the sharpest knife in the silverware drawer today. So a new 18XX accessory. Yay. A new Down in Flame series game. I don't want to, again, sound dismissive of 18XX games either, because I've actually have a couple. I've played a couple, and I've enjoyed them. But it's not like core game for me, right? Game number 6 in the Levian campaign series. I don't know what this could be. There's a dozen different ones. There's probably more than that. There's probably like 20 different Levian campaign games in development right now. So I think we're going to drink scotch until my throat feels better. That said, it might not be this scotch because this is too good for my taste buds right now. And a new Down in Flame series game. Fans of that series have been waiting a long time for that. Tournament stuff. There's an Oregon game more in Albany, Oregon. I like the cool hex map of Oregon. That's a neat logo. Candace Harris interviewed Mark Herman. So check that out. I mean, check out Candace. She's great. Don't click on the link to my channel because it's broken again. I'm not the only one. That seems to be something that they're pretty careless about, to be honest. A bunch of additional articles here. I've made the decision to not be sore about it. Eric from Eric's Table Napoleonic Battles. Thanks for stopping by. All right. We were looking for the production outlook right now. because that's the next piece of news. All right. They're currently shipping Charioteer and Skies Above Britain. Lots of folks have already got Skies Above Britain. The next charges on Thursday, December 1st, Dominant Species Marine second printing, Next War Poland second edition, Next War Supplement number 3, which I probably should order, and Twilight Struggle Red Sea. I may have a P500 in for that, and I might not. I don't know. I will feel. Here's why I bulk. It's $18. They're going to charge me $20 to ship it to me. That's not their fault, but it still is something I do not like. Production outlook. Arriving in port are the 4 games I just mentioned. At sea are Banish the Snakes. That's Kevin McPartland's new game. I got to say hello to Kevin, nice guy at Compass Expo. Inferno, which is Levy campaign game, which I do have on order. And the Russian campaign with its mounted map boards, which I did not order and don't need. I have just kind of made the call of the million different versions of Russian campaign floating about. I have just made the call to not to just stick with Russia Besieged that as my game in that space. John Longshore just picked up Caesar Deluxe for $75 including shipping. That is not bad. Space Empires is out of stock, I believe, but it's there's a P500 reprints for those. Shipping from the printer in late November include Battle of White Plains, which is a Battles of the American Revolution series game, nicely produced. I believe I have that on order. A new 5th printing of Sekigahara and Clash of Sovereigns. Clash of Sovereigns is the War of the Austrian Succession on, as I recall, a point-to-point map. Yep, point-to-point map. So this game actually looks pretty interesting. I do have more than one game on the War of the Austrian Succession. So there's that. At the printer. So I'm now only going to highlight the things in bold because those are the things whose status has changed. Grand Prix new track pack. Don't care. Seas of Thunder. That's Jeff Horger's World War II naval game. Looks fairly interesting. The British Way as the aforementioned coin game. Going to the printer in December, 18 India, Mr. President, Panzer North Africa, and People Power. People Power is the coin game about the Philippines. In final art and proofing, North Africa 41 moves up. In the art department, Pursuit of Glory 2nd edition, which I almost certainly will buy, because that will be brought up to the standard of the current editions of Paths of Glory with the mounted map and all that stuff. The original game did not have a mounted map. So I'll definitely pick that up. Nearing art department readiness, none of this is new. All right, so here's the broken links to a variety of people. I don't know who Beaker even is here, and I can't find out because the link don't work. So there's that. Here is the map for the Plum Island Horror. I know there's lots of folks interested in this. It's just, not my thing. Box cover for 18 India. Pretty cool cover. Here's the map for 18 India. Pretty cool map. There's hexes on it. I like it. Here's the final map for Cuyus Regio. This is a game I absolutely have on order and am very excited about. And I think the map looks absolutely fantastic. It is, and it's a hex map. I'm not sure you can tell from the image here, but it is a hex map. Sample art from Away Team, which is quite a bit of. More sample art from Red Dust Rebellion. I haven't seen that move up lately. Battle Command update. I want to show you the People Power. Here's this guy, Rodney, doing 1960, The Making of the President. P500 reprint tracking. I don't really see anything particularly noteworthy here. I did sell a few games, not a lot, but I sold a few games at Compass Expo, by the way. They have a flea market thing. I bought more than I sold, which is none of that. It's a surprise. All right, so that's the GMT update. Army Group North is going to be the next Barbarossa game to get redone per Vance von Voorhees, and that is where it is. It is with Vance. So best place to get an update on that has historically been Console World. I haven't heard anything lately, but my time's been a little limited too. I can tell you that the word was that Army Group North was the next one and that it should proceed much quicker because they've done a lot of the work that they needed to do on Army Group Center. So hopefully that, Trevor, thanks for stopping by. So hopefully we do see those. I'd love to see that series continued and expanded. But it is not in my hands. All right. We're going to take it from the top. The gamers did about 65 games. I forget the actual number, but it's roughly 65 games over the course of their lifespan before being acquired. I think acquired is the correct term by Multiman Publishing. Oh, there's one other thing that I have to mention actually, and that is the giveaways from October. There are 4 games sitting on the shelf behind me, not this shelf, but one on the in the other room, that are giveaway games that I still have to ship out. I was going to do that, and time became incredibly compressed, and then Compass Expo happened, and then COVID happened, and now I don't wish to send anybody a box of fucking COVID. So I have just kind of decided to apologize for that and tell everybody that I will get those games out on December 1st. That is the plan. That should give me more than enough time to quarantine and get safe games out to everybody. So, and between now and then, we'll have another giveaway actually next week. So I'll mail all 5 at the same time. Some of the giveaway folks got their stuff already, but not everybody did. All right, so we're going in order of BGG rank here, from lowest to highest. And somewhat shockingly, the lowest rated game, and not because it's bad, but because there's not enough ratings to give it a rank, is Thunder at the Crossroads, the original Thunder at the Crossroads from 1988. This is a Dave Powell game. This is a very early game in the history of the gamers, as I think you can see from the cover here. And these pictures are, let's say it's maybe not the peak of Wargame cartography. Let's put it that way. So this is a game in the Civil War Brigade series, which is a long-running series that has since been axed by Multiman. And I hope my voice will hold up for the whole show, actually. I generally feel fine, but my voice is not what it ought to be at this point, and I'm probably a little mentally slow because of all the medication and some scotch. This map does not look bad particularly. The cover looks early. It doesn't look bad as such. It just looks early, right? 1988, Dave Powell, of course, is a renowned historian and wargame designer. And this is in the Civil War Brigade series. Now, I feel like even though there were game series using common rules well in advance of when the gamers started doing that the gamers were pretty much the folks that popularized the idea of having game series with series rules and game specific rules, and now we see a great deal of that. Yes, never look at the BGG weight rating. It is a meaningless number. I mean, and to be fair, the rank is a meaningless number too. But for this purpose, it's a good. You got to do it in some order. What's it going to be random? Tim Greenhaw, welcome back to the stream. You got to do it in some kind of order, right? I use BGG for a lot. I use it for collection tracking. I use it for investigation. I'm aware that it is full of data that you then have to go in and validate sometimes, but it is a very useful site to me. So, in any case, number, I think 65 here, Thunder at the Crossroads. Rather shocking that it's not that it's low, it's that it doesn't have enough ratings to get a rank. It's 7.5, which is not that bad of a number. Next up in the list is Espinosa. So this was a battle in the Peninsular War. This is part of the Napoleonic Brigade series. And I want to say this is one of the 2 that you can just kind of download and print and play. It's pretty small. The battle itself is pretty small. Here's the counter sheet. Well, you got go get the counter sheet for Multiman because this counter sheet scan is trash. Now, I picked up Marengo at Compass Expo off the flea market table because I would like to investigate. I don't think I'm going to try and run down the 4 boxed games that they did in that series. Although they picked good battles when they did battles. They picked Marengo, which was Napoleon's first big victory in 1796 or 97, something like that. They picked Austerlitz, which was of course possibly his greatest victory. They picked Talavera, which is another Peninsular War battle. It's pretty well known. And they picked Aspern Essling, which is a fascinating battle in which Archduke Charles catches Napoleon with his pants down, crossing the Danube, and the French fight fiercely, and it's a fierce battle, but they get beat. Whatever else you want to say about Archduke Charles, he did defeat Napoleon at least that one time. Napoleon spanked him on numerous other occasions, of course. But a mini game that probably a lot of folks aren't aware of. You can download this thing from gamersarchive.com or .net or whatever it is. Marengo is 1800. You're absolutely right. Thank you for the correction. I'm being stupid. I'm literally reading a book about Marengo right now. Force Eagles War. This is part of the Tactical Combat series. And this is a hypothetical 2-day battle between Soviets and U.S. heavy forces on the west bank of Jordan in the mid-90s. So aside from being part of the otherwise very interesting Tactical Combat series, this is a topic that I would have absolutely zero interest in. I like series games in general because they give me the most play value for the least amount of additional rules learning overhead. And not that they don't have their problems as well, they do, but that's a significant consideration, like personal mental bandwidth, right? Even if I were a huge TCS fan, I would not be interested in this topic, just topically. Not interested in hypothetical World War III at this scale. Not really World War III necessarily, but tactical NATO versus Warsaw Pact stuff. Nah, I'm good. I'm just not interested in that. This one gets a rating, however, 2712, which, considering there's like 65 games and this is the lowest rated one in the entire list, is not such a bad number. 6.6 on the rating. Again, that's not very meaningful, but there it is. Next up is August Fury. This is part of the Civil War Brigade series, and this is second Bull Run, or second Manassas, if you like. The Confederates won, so that I figure I'm willing to concede their name of the battle, at least in this particular case. But we will not be calling Antietam anything other than Antietam. So August Fury, not a great looking box, designed by Dean Essig and Dave Powell. There's not a lot of pictures on here except for this thing. The map looks rudimentary, to say the least. But that is literally the only thing I know about this game. Now, the Civil War Brigade series, of course, is interesting for a number of reasons. One of which is that it uses written orders. You write out your orders to your individual parts of your army, and then they have to follow those orders. And in order to change those orders, you have to write new orders and then transmit those to the commander on the spot. At the time when I first heard about that, and I did not own any Civil War Brigade series games. In fact, the only Civil War Brigade series games I've ever owned have been in the last 5 years, and it's the Antietam game in the Quiet Fields 2 and the Shiloh game that I just bought, again, off the flea market table at Compass Expo. I thought this order system thing was really weird and off-putting back in the 90s when I heard about it, which is strange because now I think I look at that and think, wow, that's awesome and cool. You can technically play these games without it. I think it is a mistake to do that. I think you will have a much better experience if you use the written, or more interesting, at least, experience if you use the written orders system. Dean certainly has done written orders or something like that, like the op sheets in TCS, on a number of occasions in a number of different systems. I think his reasons for doing that are well motivated, but I also am really enjoying his take on that similar command and control question that we see in BCS. which does not have written orders. There is an orders rule that I think Dean recommends that you play with, and I'm not sure I see why. I think it's all kind of built into the game. Um, Uh, as a discussion hub for war games, BGG is not great. It does depend on the game, though. I can tell you that discussion of World in Flames in on BGG is pretty robust. Discussion of World in Flames on Consim World, on the other hand, is scattered across a bunch of different folders from a bunch of different editions, and it's kind of a big mess. So, in any case, August Fury here, an early second Manassas game from and there's certainly some good reviews on BGG. That's absolutely true too. I mean, the biggest difference to me between why I spend more time on BGG than I do on Consim World is it's just an easier site to deal with, right? So, um, now, that said, on the orders thing, there have been some other interesting takes on on that along those lines, right? The Eagles of France series, for example, that I just got back into, um, has a very interesting orders system that isn't written orders; it's just chits, and you assign the orders via chits. John C, thank you so much. Much appreciated. We are all happy that you are back safe. And we'll show John off in the pictures as well when we get the Compass Expo AAR report video done. Hopefully, I'll be feeling better. Well, I'm feeling a lot better. I'm not like completely 100%, especially when it comes to talking. We had a I didn't. Well, it's not a secret. We had a Charles S. Roberts board meeting over the weekend that ran almost 3 hours, and I felt like a dish rag, worn out dish rag by the end of it. And that was yesterday when I didn't really feel that bad. So, in their quiet fields, this is the original Antietam game, Dean Essig designed, the Civil War Brigade series. There was a revision of this called In Their Quiet Fields 2. That's probably the one that I would recommend. I can tell you that the map is not meaningfully more attractive than this in their quiet fields too. Um, these are pretty manageable, by the way, Civil War battle games. That is why the brigade scale was chosen. Um, and these games are not necessarily fast, but pretty playable, right? At the same time, and it's a bit of a shame that the series is no more. However, on the plus side, they did a lot of battles, including a lot of rarely covered battles in the Civil War Brigade series, and you can get just about all these games for relatively inexpensive prices on the secondary market. Maybe not on eBay, but you can get these for pretty good prices. So if you're looking for an Antietam game using this system, I get the second one, but and it's higher rated too, whatever that means. Next up is Objective Schmidt. This is Hurtgen Forest in the TCS system. Topically, I feel like this is one of the most attractive topics that they've done in the TCS system. And I've had this pass through my hands, and I probably shouldn't have gotten rid of it. But I'm not invested in TCS either, right? In the sense of this is one of my like identified systems that I like. So, um, and that's probably why I let it slip through my fingers. I do have one TCS game that is Black Wednesday. It is not small. It is a large, large game. I want to say it's three, might even be four maps. It's at least two or three, four maps and like five counter sheets. So it's a pretty big game. These are all marker heavy games too, for the most part. That's a Dean thing. Even BCS is relatively marker heavy for what it is. All right, next up is a Raging Storm. This is the Campione Salient. This is a battle in Italy, right? Yep, in Italy in 1944. This is also, and in the TCS system, also a very attractive topic. Now, in TCS, it's not called written orders, but what you have are these ops sheets that are basically these, okay, kids, let's be nice in the chat. Um, you have these op sheets upon which you have to kind of direct your troops, and then you're beholden to what you put on the op sheets, right? It's actually quite a neat mechanic as well. Lafroig is great. I just can't taste it, to be honest. Um, I wish I could taste it because I love Lafroig. Lafroig is delicious. We are putting some counters away here. I'm obviously it smells like I'm kind of done clipping, but we'll see how far I get um, through the list here. Anyway, a raging storm. This is also a very attractive topic. Battle in Italy in 1944 using the TCS system. This is one that 1997. So the counters are relatively updated actually for TCS. They're not the really ugly or early TCS counters. Mo from Mo's Game Table is here. Mo, welcome back. Thanks for stopping by. I think we're putting that there, and I think we're putting these here. Um, but yeah, these are actually, I think, reasonably attractive counters. And I want to say it's platoon scale, by the way, for those who consider that particularly important. So it's tactical, but it's not like squad level tactical. This is probably the one system that might conceivably get me to do another World War II tactical game, because this is really doing something different. And even something new like Last 100 Yards, which is supposed to also do a bunch of things new and different. I'm not sure it's as innovative as TCS, frankly. Um, in any event, a raging storm. Next up is Gazala. This is an SCS system game. Now, the standard combat system was designed by Dean to be quote unquote a beer and pretzel system. And I don't know, I guess my definition of beer and pretzels differs from Dean's, which is fine. Um, I don't I don't like to use that term for at least not for SCS. For something like Tank Duel, yeah, I can go with that. But for SCS, no, I think it's quite a sophisticated system, actually. It's just really easy to play. There's 8 pages of rules. Um, if you saw the interview the other night, or let alone listen to me yesterday after 2.5 hours, yeah, I'm feeling great. Um, Depending on the SCS game, there might be about an equivalent number of game specific rules. You might have a total of like 16 pages of rules, but the core system is 8 pages. It's really, really, really easy. Um, I don't like all SCS games, frankly. I have noisily complained about a couple of them, in fact. SCS does not feel like OCS light to me at all, actually. And I've played a fair amount of SCS and quite a lot of OCS. Um, there are a couple of things that are similar about the two. The barrages work the same in some work in a comparable way in some of the games, and you have the Dean rounding rule where you use regular rounding instead, math rounding instead of just round everything down. Other than that, I'm not really sure the two systems are all that similar. Other than being pretty standard hex and counter games with the CRT and a TEC and all that stuff. That said, Gazala is a North Africa topic. I'm not really interested in this topic at this scale. This is one that I don't need, have never had, and have no plans to acquire unless it falls into my lap. Um, by I'm not sure I agree with this actually. Bis Nunez says SCS is a bit crunchy, not as easy as Commands and Color. I take that to be Commands and Colors by Richard Borg. Um, because if you're talking about Richard Berg, I have no idea what game you're talking about. I think SCS is a simpler game than Commands and Colors, frankly. And you just look at the rule book. It's like a 40-page rule book. It's easy, but it still takes a lot of language to explain how it works. SCS to me is pretty simple. Now, there are some SCS games that add a lot of crunch. I don't want to say a lot, but a good amount of crunch in the game specific rules. An example of that would be Day of Days, which I think where I think it does it to poor effect. I don't like that game. but I don't think that. I mean, 8 pages and everything's there. Not that it's as simple as counting pages, right? There's complicated games with shorter rule books and simpler games with longer rule books, and that's the case here too in this comparison. But I think SCS at its foundation, right, is an easier game than Commands and Colors. You have less to remember. You don't have to remember the. I mean, it's on the card, right? The values of all the troops and how all the different dice results interact. Next up is Embrace an Angry Wind. This is Spring Hill and Franklin Civil War Brigade series, and this is another one where it's battles that don't get a lot of coverage. Spring Hill and Franklin. Franklin is Hood, Hood in 1864, Hood's last gamble, as it were, to try and make something happen in the Western theater, and it went poorly for Hood and his army. And the Battle of Franklin happens in that context, and Spring Hill too, obviously. But very interesting looking game. I would probably be inclined to grab this as a representative example of the Civil War Brigade series because I don't think I have any games on either battle, any battle games on either battle. I absolutely do have great campaigns, the American Civil Wars, Hood Strikes North, which covers this at an operational level. There probably is. This is true. Just want to make sure everybody's being nice here. I don't know. I don't know when, John. I wish I knew when this was coming. It's like 3 or 4 years late at this point. I will probably buy this too, unless I become convinced that they have fucked it up somehow, which they could. So, perfectly good game. Leave it to decision to screw it up. All right, A Frozen Hell, The Battle of Some Place, the name of which I cannot pronounce. Russo finished war 1939. This is Tactical Combat Series 2, Dean Essig and Alan Wambold. And this is a kind of the updated style of counters and pretty unattractive maps, in my opinion. I like the gamers maps. In many cases, not at all. So I certainly think that they're more refined looking now. Let me put it that way. But I don't like the map for this particular game, at least. All right, next up is Semper Fi. This is U.S. Marines in Korea TCS. Now, for the same reason, I don't really need a lot of other coverage of World War II tactical, God forbid, hypothetical tactical. I really don't need any additional coverage of Korean War tactical either. That said, I'd probably rather play this than play ASL Korea. I find ASL Korea a bit uninteresting, to be honest, from what I've seen of it so far. Good to have the map boards, some neat looking scenarios, but not something I feel like there was a huge motivation for them to do. So, again, the updated counters that look pretty good as well. I have no idea who did the graphic design on any of this stuff. Looking at the map real quick, this looks like a Dean map. I think this map is perfectly good map. This is the gamers in order, not necessarily. There's a quite a low ranked game that you'll see that goes for quite a tidy pile of cash. That's probably coming up pretty soon, and I'll mention it when we get to it. But in the meantime, here we have Semper Fi from 1997. Next is Bloody 110. This is Dean Essig. This is 1944 in Normandy. This is another reasonably interesting topically for me. And again, this has passed through my hands, and I elected not to retain it at the time. Another TCS game. It's pretty early TCS game too, as I think you can tell from the rudimentary looking cover. I haven't really looked very closely at the SCS North Africa, by the way. I've heard some very good things about the World War I games. And I have great fondness for Bastogne and the Mighty Endeavor, and I do have It Never Snows as well, and I'd like to try that. appallingly low rating on this game. Asper Nestling. So unless the whole series is rather low rated, to be honest. This is the Napoleonic Brigade series. This is kind of a sister series to the Civil War Brigade series. Very interesting looking series. That's why I grabbed the Marengo game. This is from 1999, and frankly, I think this cover is a really good cover. And in fact, I think all of the Napoleonic Brigade series covers were really good, which I guess tells us something about just because the cover's pretty doesn't mean the game's going to go over particularly well. By the way, because I forgot to mention it up front, for those who would like an invite to the Discord server, there is another 24-hour link in the ticker down at the bottom. So you can type that in if you want, or you can email me at the email address that is in the ticker as well, and I will send you an invite to the Discord server. I meant to get to that in the whole social media discussion. It didn't happen. To me, this is my number one most fascinating Napoleonic battle. It's really interesting. It's Napoleon versus Archduke Charles, like I mentioned before. Napoleon is in mid crossing trying to cross the Danube, and the Austrian army attacks. And they managed to give the French a good spanking and force them to retreat back across the river, and in a very costly battle. Sometime later, month or two later, something like that, maybe a couple of months later, is the climactic Battle of Wagram, where Napoleon defeats Charles. But that's because Napoleon managed to get his entire army across the Danube by then. So if you are Napoleon, so understand that Ekriktal here says Napoleonic Brigade level feels weird, especially after playing La Bataille, and it's going to, frankly, because the Brigade is a weird scale for Napoleon. It's not really that weird. But it's not really very tactical. So if you are expecting a tactical game, John C., thanks for stopping by. Much appreciated. It was great to see you at Compass Expo, and I'm glad that you got home safe as well. And yes, Alon gets blown up in this battle as well. So brigade scale is not really super tactical for Napoleonics, and I think that's the gap that you're feeling there. The Library of Napoleonic Battles is more. It's again, and I've talked about this before. It fits in a kind of a weird space between tactical and Napoleonic that we sometimes call grand tactical, but I think it tilts more in the direction of operational. In any event, as for Nestling, I shouldn't have gotten rid of this. That was dumb. The good news is it is pretty inexpensive here in the US on the BGG marketplace. Here's a copy for $20, for example, in very good condition, according to the seller. So fascinating battle. And if you want to look at this series, this might be one that I might look at. On the other hand, I suspect that it's got a little more in the way of game specific rules because it's the middle of a river crossing. Daniel Teets, thanks for stopping by. Austerlitz, Napoleonic Brigade series. Another nice cover, by the way. Now, this, of course, is one of the most famous battles of the entire Napoleonic period. This is Napoleon on the Pratzen Heights and against, excuse me, against clownishly incompetent Austrian commanders, and is one of his great triumphs. The counters, I got to tell you, both the CWB counters and the Napoleonic Brigade series counters do not impress me particularly. I'm kind of okay with the map in this particular case, but the counters are just, I mean, there's nothing wrong with them. They're fine, but I'm not incredibly fond of the counters in this, in either of these two series, to be honest. Next up is Malvern Hill, Civil War Brigade series, Battle of Malvern Hill. This is another seldom covered. This is another seldom covered battle. So another one that would be pretty good. And this is sort of a mini series that they did in the Civil War Brigade series for the battles of the seven days. This is the campaign in the Peninsula campaign in which Robert E. Lee made his name as a alleged genius Part 1 is Gaines Mill, Part 2 is Seven Pines, Part 3 is Malvern Hill, and you can combine all 3 of them to do the entire campaign, and that has been done. To what extent that was successful, I can't say. I disagree with Stigler on this. Well, I don't necessarily disagree as much as I believe he overstates the case. Let me put it that way. Maximum physical outrage. So here's the low-rated game that nevertheless goes for decent change. Omaha. This is TCS Omaha. It's 4 maps. It's huge. It's half of Omaha Beach. It is the first infantry division, half of Omaha Beach. And I think there's a little bit of overlap with the 29th Infantry as well. This is a very large game. It's going to take a long time to play. And for a good chunk of it, you will, in fact, not use the orders system because it handles the landings. This is probably, if I was going to pick one of the TCS games I would most like to play, this would probably be the one, despite the fact that you don't use the op sheets. If I said orders system, it's the op sheet system for the first, I don't know, good chunk of the game. Let me put it that way. Fascinating topic. This is one of my favorite topics. Really interesting to see this at this scale, a platoon level Normandy game, right? It's enormous. There was talk of a volume 2 to do the rest of Omaha Beach, but that never occurred. So that is too bad. Prices on this, like new, $113. So not super duper cheap. This one says new for 81. So I don't know what Mr. 113 is thinking, but whatever. Sometimes these people are just not really paying much attention when they put these things up. Labatt is a lot to handle, to be honest. Even the simpler Labatt systems are fairly complicated. And I started reading the Premier rules, and it's a lot, man. The language in that is just like, this is not written like a conventional rule book. I'm not really baffled by anything that I've read so far, but it's certainly not incredibly approachable. Let me put it that way. Matanikau, which I believe I am pronouncing more or less correctly. This is Guadalcanal 1942. I've had this one as well. This is kind of a mid-period TCS game with the symbols on it instead of the little miniature dudes. This is battles on the Matanikau River in Guadalcanal. Interesting topic. This is another very attractive TCS game topically. Probably shouldn't have let this one go, to be completely honest. And these TCS games are criminally low rated too. Bloody Road South. This is Battle of the Wilderness. It's interesting that the Wilderness has been so little covered by Wargames. And it's also interesting that there's at least 3 games about the Wilderness in development right now. This is assuredly accurate, right? I mean, Rob Johnson says that the opening of many D-Day games can be very programmed, and it's absolutely going to feel like that, whether it's scripted or not, right? Because you've got to do X, Y, and Z and get on the beaches and establish a foothold before you can a literal beachhead, before you can actually start making significant operational decisions. Bloody Road South here is a Civil War Brigade series game. Counters are kind of blah. Map is not great, but it's an interesting topic. Very much looking forward to the upcoming Battle of the Wilderness game from Great Battles of the American Civil War, and the new line of battle game on the Wilderness from MMP, which is going to be called No Turning Back Unless Plans Have Changed, since I talked to the developer a few years ago. Hopefully we'll see each other again in February. Very interesting topic, very interesting battle, late Civil War, late-ish anyway. So an a very important and undercovered battle. Next up is Crusader. This is a standard combat series game, quite a simple standard combat series game, and it does what you think it does, covers Operation Crusader. I've got like 5 games on Operation Crusader. That's probably not true, but I've got at least 5 games that include Operation Crusader. I don't feel like I need another one, and I certainly don't need an SCS Crusader. I've got BCS Crusader, and that is going to keep me happy on this topic for the foreseeable future. Nevertheless, this is a lot less mental stress than BCS. I can tell you that. So next up is another TCS entry. Now, I believe there's only one non-series game in this entire list, by the way. Next up is Hunters from the Sky. This is, what even is this? Airborne assault on Malame Airfield in Crete. Interesting topic. I think I would choose to play this battle out in GTS, but maybe that's because I have that game already and I don't have this. This is an interesting topic, to say the least. This is the paratroopers and New Zealand 5th Brigade. Okay. All right. Next up is Seven Pines. This is another of the 7 Days games for the Civil War Brigade series. And I like these covers too, by the way. I feel like, I mean, the question of art and graphic design are overlapping but not identical things. Okay. I think this map is fine, to be honest. I don't think this is exceptionally hideous in any way. The counters are a little blah, but they're not abrasively so, I don't think. There's been good art with bad graphic design and vice versa, and good graphic design with bad art. A number of SCI titles with graphic design by Redmond Simonson, a brilliant graphic design and mediocre to poor art, for example. In any event, Peninsula Campaign, 1862, McClellan gets the runaround from the Pinkertons. And this is another one of the 7 Days campaign. Somebody get on these people, please. Thank you. Sounds like either John or Mike or Andrew got to them already. Thank you. You get used to this. This is not a serious complaint. It's really not an issue. You do have to get used to it, but you do get used to it. Gaines Mill. I mean, think about it. You're actually gonna find the hexes that way anyway. You're gonna find 0 and then count up to number 3, right? So from a usability standpoint, it doesn't matter. Now the white hexes, the white hex grid on a darker map, that's weird. Not a lot of games do that, or I don't know if that's really true. That always feels weird to me. I'm used to it in the case of the gamer stuff, though. Here's Gaines Mill, once again, 7 Days, and all 3 of these are kind of clustered together around one another. Once again, Civil War Brigade series. Next, I had this back in the day too. Probably shouldn't have got rid of it. This is GD41. So there's a series of 3 games in the Tactical Combat series that kind of trace some of the history of the Grossdeutschland formation that started as a regiment and eventually became a de facto division. I had this back in the day. This is, what is the actual topic here? This is happening during Operation Typhoon. And I'm not going to sit here and read the description. I don't remember. It's been 25 years since I've owned this. Once again, TCS and pretty attractive TCS counters too, I think. The map, I don't know that I have a clear memory of the map. The map is a bit bland, but not objectionably so. So GD41, and there's going to be a GD 40 and 42 in here. Of the 3, that one, GD41, is the lowest rated. Guadalajara. This is Spanish Civil War SCS. So for those interested in this, and this is kind of like an operational game, right? It's Italians and a bunch of volunteers versus a bunch of other Spaniards and some volunteers. Very interesting that SCS did this topic. Let me put it that way. All right. Fucko says that's the Battle of Mtsensk, which is, if you've seen Roads to Moscow, that battle is in there as well. And that actually, that rings the right bell too. We find that I think there's some truth to this. I've at this point, we're being a bit challenged learning BCS, but the it's a bit fussy, right? A lot of Dean's designs, frankly, are kind of fussy. I don't necessarily mean that in a negative way, because they work at the end of the day, right? But they're a little bit fussy. BCS is like that. OCS is like that. SCS is not really like that, except for the rounding rule. I think this map looks fine. I have no problem with this map at all. No problem with the counters. And generally speaking, I think the SCS counters. Let me put it this way: I can't recall an SCS game where I said, "Whoa, those are ugly counters," except that when they're hot pink. That's weird. That's a weird stylistic choice, and that has occurred a couple of times. Perryville. This is another seldom treated battle in wargaming. This is 1862. It's quite an important battle at that. And it is in the Civil War Brigade series. On the map here, taking a look, again, we see counters that are blah, and I have no significant problems with this map, to be honest. Is it the best looking map I've ever seen? No, but it looks functional and non-abrasive. Oh, here's another one. Baron Victory. This is Chickamauga. This is one of a couple of Chickamauga games that we're going to see. This is the BCS Chickamauga, right? Yes. This is the original BCS Chickamauga game. This should still be a pretty decent sized game because it's a huge battle. 2 maps, 2 counter sheets. It's not that unit heavy. A lot of that's going to be markers, frankly. And if we look at this, I think that's a pretty not this map I think is pretty ugly. I got to tell you. That like elevation color palette is just does not work. There's a number of these games that use that color palette. Not attractive. Don't like it. The counters are again they're bland but unexceptional. It's going to sound super bashy and I didn't mean it to come off that way. This is fair. Marengo, this is the game that I picked up actually at Compass Expo. So this is I was about to say it was a good looking game, and we've covered that. It's a fine looking game, right? This map, there's nothing wrong with this map. This is a 1 mapper. I believe it's 2 counter sheets. It sounds approximately correct. Approximately, yeah. The counters are fine. Nice cover. I like the cover. This game system, this particular game is the game I am going to use to fiddle with the Napoleonic Brigade series because that's the one that I have. And if it's awesome, maybe I'll pick a couple more up. But I've got a lot of Napoleonic options at this point. This is absolutely true. A lot. And Thomas Prowl, thanks for stopping by. That is absolutely correct. And when I'm saying that, a lot of that is just due to date, right? These literal same folks are not doing the same graphic design in 2022 that they were in 1995. South Mountain, 2008. This is a game that's gotten rather a lot of traffic, actually. Oh, and maybe Mr. Prowl can give us an update as to where the Axis Empires Deluxe Edition, whatever that thing's going to be called, is in the production queue. While you're here, we might as well ask you, right? In any event, South Mountain, interesting battle. This happens in the run up to Antietam. There's a lot of coverage on this battle. I've got like 2 or 3 games on it, and I'm not like going. I think we're all, Thomas. I think the question is, we'd all love to buy it. When can we do that? We'd all like to receive it at least. I don't know if you have any visibility on that or not. And if you don't, it's fine to say I have no idea. So, in any event, South Mountain, interesting battle, Civil War Brigade series. These counters, I think, are more attractive than some of the other older games in the series. And again, I think this map is basically fine. The hard lines along the elevation actually mean something. You can see it here, where not every elevation line is a hard black line like that. So that is conveying information, and it isn't just there to be ugly. Here is the sole non-series game on this entire list, Circus Minimus. And I think the design impetus for this was Dean wanted a game that was as much fun as Circus Maximus, but was a lot less headache to play. And I think that's fair. Circus Maximus is probably a lot more detailed and wargamey than it needs to be. South Mountain. Yeah, he's right. Mr. Fucko is correct. South Mountain is the regimental sub-series, not the Civil War Brigade series. So it's a one level down in scale, more units, more stuff. Excellent. That is outstanding. So you heard it here first, folks. News you can use. Mr. Prowell says that proofing is getting completed and they're expecting it to go to print in early 2023, which is great news. Hopefully, that means we will see it in 2023. Because I think I and a bunch of other people who have already played Axis Empires and like it a lot are excited about seeing the new edition. So yes, we accept the correction. South Mountain is regimental subseries, and we're going to have a couple of those as well. There's a couple I might have to check because I find the titles confusing because I've never owned an RSS game. In any case, Circus Minimus is what you think it is. It is chariot racing in ancient Rome. It is very easy to play. It's a Ziploc game. They may even still have copies of it at Multiman Publishing. Next up, I'm gonna spend time on this. This is our lowest rated OCS game at 7.0 at Wargame rank number 1239. So let me answer this question. This isn't really a question. This is an accurate statement by Chad Canady. So with some relatively minor tweaking, you can play any of the RSS games, again, regimental sub-series, with the line of battle rules. And if you have those games, I would recommend doing so. I think that the line of battle rules do a lot of good streamlining. They're really relatively easy to play. I enjoyed it a lot. So John, it's well, I mean, it's this one, but not, and I guess I'll get to that over the next couple here. So this is the first Operational Combat Series game. Okay, this is the series that started the mega popular OCS series. This game started the OCS series. Okay, it is quite a lot different than later games in the series. A lot changes between this and game number 2, Enemy at the Gates. Okay. In particular, there might be trace supply, but it doesn't function like trace supply does now. You actually have to feed all your units off the map, so you end up with like hundreds and hundreds of supply points. And that may be why I bounced off this back in 1995 or so when I owned the first 2. That's a lot, man. That's just a lot of stuff. I'm going to ask everybody to be to be nice in the chat. Okay. Let's all be cool. And then we won't have to put anybody in the corner for 5 minutes. The ancestor that sparked OCS, Europa. I mean, that's the clear antecedent. Dean even talks about that in the rules a little bit of like, hey, here's an idea we got from Europa. And you can absolutely see the sort of progression from the ridiculous Baroque and bloated Europa air system down to the very concise and succinct OCS air system. The scale of the units is almost the same between the two games, but the map scale is completely different. And Dean saw that hey, this is a huge problem, and fixed it just by changing the map scale. Now it changes the games pretty dramatically, right? Because on the one hand, in approximately the same amount of space as you got the entire East Front in Europa, you get the area around Moscow in Guderian's Blitzkrieg, right? You get Operation Typhoon at 5 miles to the hex as opposed to 16 miles to the hex. I can't say about Winter Storm. I want to say that Winter Storm may have started a bit earlier. I wouldn't have been surprised that if that was something that Dean looked at too. But I think the progression from Europa is pretty clear and obvious. This is also something that Dean said, and that did lead to DAC. Campaign for North Africa made playable at roughly the same scale. Yep, that's pretty much DAC. And Thomas here says that the Doc was in design before Guderian's Blitzkrieg, which is very interesting because it didn't come out for several years later. But nevertheless, I kind of feel like that makes sense, right? And if you think about supply, think about, for those who have at least glanced at Campaign for North Africa, you might think about that Baroque supply system incredibly streamlined into the OCS supply system. Um, so now there was talk at one point of doing Der Weltkrieg World War II, and that never seems to have occurred. I frankly think that system is superior in basically every way to Europa, but and I guess both of them, OCS and Der Weltkrieg, to be frank. But there is a certain grandeur to Europa that you don't get elsewhere too. So John, thanks you so much, much appreciated. So this is fair. This is fair. In any case, Guderian's Blitzkrieg, the original. If I say Guderian's Blitzkrieg 2, it's because I've said that a lot more. Because I have that. I have, in fact, yes, I have two of them. The ultimate ancestor of the OCS series, and the kind of the game that started it all, and really pulled a lot of notice for its supply system. Next up is Liros, the Island Prize. This is a Greek island campaign. World War II TCS system. This is another one that I had designed, I think co-designed by, this might be a Dave Friedrich's design from a series designed by Dean. Interesting looking game. This is 1943. Yeah, 1943 on this one. It's a weird looking island, right? Here's the island. It's a weird looking island. Their Weltkrieg maps definitely take some. Mark, there is a link in the video description to the Patreon. Thank you. It's a weird looking island, right? There's no amount of cartographical skill is going to fix the fact that it's a weird looking island. But you get basically the whole island on the map too, and that's kind of cool in that you can kind of encapsulate the entire thing in one good sized but not like ridiculously oversized game. And it's we're climbing up in the ratings here. We've got a long way to go. Champion Hill Civil War Brigade series. This is Champion Hill. And in fact, I just got another game about Champion Hill. Go check out the unboxing from the other day on that. This is Western Theater, run up to Vicksburg. Counters are decent looking counters. The map is the elevation, the sort of contrast on this elevation bothers me. But the woods really don't. So next up is Screaming Eagles in Holland. This is during Operation Market Garden. Therefore, it is of interest to me topically. This is Defensive Hell's Highway. So the Germans are counterattacking here, and the 101st Airborne is defending. This is a very interesting game topically. I have never owned this. If I found this at a price I felt was reasonable, I would absolutely probably pick this up. This is a more attractive game for me to experiment with TCS than Black Wednesday is, frankly. We could see that this runs $75. So, and yeah, let me mention that actually. If you want to see stuff about Der Weltkrieg, go check out Christopher Prest's channel. He's been doing content on it for quite a while now. Very good content at that. April's Harvest. This is the Shiloh game that I couldn't remember the title of. This is the Shiloh game I picked up at Compass Expo off the flea market table. And, it's Shiloh. I've done some reading about Shiloh. I've played a game or two about Shiloh. So I'm not going into it totally blind. So this is going to be my game to explore the Civil War Brigade series rules with. I've had a couple of those other games pass through my hands. I had in there Quiet Fields 2 at one point, and I got rid of it. I shouldn't have done that. Antietam's a really interesting battle as well. I don't know if I'm going to play the whole thing, but I want to kind of try both of these systems out, and TCS for that matter. Drive on Paris. Quite early SCS game on this. Um, don't really care for the cover. It's kind of a weird gradient with just like a picture in there. It's weird. Um, however, this game looks cool. This is, I think, a perfectly nice map. The counters, I don't remember what they look like offhand, but they're probably perfectly fine. And this is basically the first 3 months of the campaign in the west of World War One. The part where like things happen. These counters look good. Nice looking counters, nice looking map. This says 2000. Was there multiple printings of this? Doesn't say that there was. This probably goes for decent change as well. It does. Not surprising. Again, if I didn't say this is an SCS game, um, all right, let's make sure. All right, so Jason W says this particular list of games almost needs a flow chart so you can see which games belong to which series and how multiple games cover the same topic. This is true. So I've tried to keep it straight as to which. So the kind of the main series that we've talked about a lot of so far are TCS, the Tactical Combat Series, SCS, the Standard Combat Series, and CWB, the Civil War Brigade Series, and a few NWB, Napoleonic Brigade, NT, NBS, right? NBS. The Napoleonic Brigade Series, sometimes called the Napoleonic Battle Series, but everything I've actually seen on printed material says Napoleonic Brigade Series. And there's some overlap between these, right? There's SCS topics that get covered in OCS, and OCS topics get covered in SCS, and TCS topics get covered in one of the other two. So there's kind of a lot of overlap here, right? We've got Jack and North Africa, which are basically the same game using two completely different game systems. That's a bit reductive. I don't think that's totally fair. But it's not coming directly from my ass either, right? So best TCS entry game is unless you already have something, in which case play that. But otherwise, the best TCS entry game is Ariete. It is the Ziploc game, most recent in this series. It is small. It is Italians in North Africa. Ariete, so it's good Italians in North Africa. And is a nice looking game with uncomplicated rules and terrain. And it's inexpensive. And if you had gotten in on the MMP sale where they put a sale on Ziploc games, you'd have gotten it for like 30 or 40% off too. Drive on Paris though looks really quite neat, and if this happens to fall into my hands, then it's not leaving. GD40, GD being Großdeutschland again. The Battle for Stone, France in 1940. This is the first game in that 3-game sequence. BGG does have, so Nutball, thank you. BGG, I'll show you this actually. So if I want to look at the series, right, this is GD40. I can go down to family, click on the series, and I can get usually a little bit of info on the series. Sometimes there's a website link. In this case, this goes to Gamers Archive. And you can also see the top games, which is almost never useful, but you can also see all the games. And these will be listed alphabetically by default, but then you can go in here and say listed by rank or whatever you want. Also, sometimes there is a wiki, like a community wiki, on BGG that will have a bunch of additional information. Now, in the case of TCS, this is not, hold on. Is this a geek list? Here it is. Here's the actual useful thing. This will tell you all the games in the series, body count, 5 battles in Vietnam. That's a thing that's happening. Goose Green is going to be the next TCS game, by the way. That's Falkland Islands War, by the way. So this is basically an accurate statement. Ariete is probably the best division the Italians fielded in the whole war until it got destroyed and then rebuilt. After which it was not really much better than the rest of the Italian army. And yes, Just a Guard has done some stuff in Derville Creek as well. I'd like to. I know they had a whole campaign game of it going up in Seattle at one point. So TCS is not dead. There was kind of like a little pilot to see if people were still interested. That pilot was Ariete. Next game in the series will be Goose Green. That is in development. I don't know how long it's been since this page has been updated. My guess is it's been a long time. But clearly, this thing, 18 games in the series, this thing had some staying power, as did the Civil War Brigade series. Moving on from GD40, however. No Better Place to Die, the Battle of Murfreesboro, also known as Stones River. This is our good friend Braxton Bragg versus our other good buddy William Rosecrans in 1862. This is not a good performance by Rosecrans, and really not a good performance by Bragg either, but some of his subordinate commanders did perform well. So graphically, this looks unobjectionable to me. I've never owned this. This is an interesting battle. There is a GBACW game on this battle that is Dead of Winter, which is where it is called Stones River. That 6 of one, half dozen of the other, right? Stones River in GBACW is a pretty big game. In this game, it's quite a bit smaller. It's one counter sheet and one map. Definitely bigger in GBACW, but that's regimental scale, right? This is brigades, so you would expect that. Next up, Huba's Pocket. We're making very slow progress on that. All right. This is fair. Like Cancun, for example. I am probably not going to Winter Offensive, would be my guess. All right, so Huba's Pocket is OCS, Operational Combat Series, and one of the lower rated games in the series. It hasn't been available for a long time. Dave Frederick's design from the Dean Essig series design. I guess I'll mention now, I've talked about this a million times, but not lately. Basically, any of the OCS games can be played with the current rules, 4 whatever it is, rule set, except for Guderian's Blitzkrieg, the first Guderian's Blitzkrieg. That's one of the reasons why it was redone, I'm sure. Huba's Pocket has basically been made obsolete by Third Winter. The action here is covered in Third Winter. This is one of the few OCS titles I do not own. I'm actually kind of interested in getting a copy, but I am absolutely not interested in paying these kinds of prices. Is anybody in the US 185, 130? No, see, I think those people are nuts. There's no way this is worth that when I could go buy Third Winter for less money than that at a discount, admittedly, but I can go get Third Winter for less than that. And it covers that and it's all up to date and all that stuff. Not to say that this is a bad game, but it's literally the only game in the series that I don't have. This and Guderian's Blitzkrieg 1 are the only two that I don't own. And I guess DAC 1, but I have DAC 2, which is the upgrade. So I'm not really burned about that. And I'm certainly not going to go pay $200 or $300 for DAC 1. In this case, I don't really see why people think it's worth that amount of money. I just don't think that it is. It is, again, because there's a new game in the series that covers the topic. It is nevertheless an interesting topic. Now, there's not 100%, I guess I'll say, there's not 100. No, there really is 100% overlap here, isn't there? Third Winter runs from September 43 to May of 44, as I recall. And that's entirely in here, and that takes place entirely on those maps. This is a 2-map game, as I recall. It's a 2-map game. So at the time, this was kind of, on the small side, right? And only 6 counter sheets. So it's just a tiny, little mini game type thing. Huba's Pocket, relatively low rated OCS game. Relative, right? This terrible sound, this is Chickamauga. This is the regimental sub-series. Now, of the RSS games, I'm really not into, because I think the components for Line of Battle look better too. I'm really not super into going back to getting the RSS games. This is the one that tempts me because it's Chickamauga. Again, this is one of the most fascinating battles of the Civil War, in my opinion. Excuse me. And it's quite a nice package, and I've actually seen this played. Well, it ain't the prettiest map I've ever seen. It's far from the worst. So, um, and again, this is the Regimental sub series, which is kind of, I guess, a fork off of CWB. Thomas says that Hubis was a small map, but dense, encounter crunchiness. So I'm curious to know if it's denser than something like a Third Winter might be, or say a Guderian's Blitzkrieg 2, both of which I have played. Obviously, density is going to vary in OCS pretty dramatically based on the topic, right? You're going to have way lower density in something like DAC than you're going to have in some East Front game where there's masses of units and giant lines grinding against each other. But in this situation, in the Hubis pocket situation, you do in fact have giant lines grinding against each other. Stegler, I'm having trouble understanding your taste here. I really am. One True Flem mentions GCACW, Battle Above the Clouds. This was actually my first GCACW game, and it's fantastic. Yeah. So I'm pretty much used to that because that's the kind of stuff that we play. And yes, I consider that to be it's pretty high density, but it's not as bad as Europa high density. This is Black Wednesday. This is Krasny Board, Spanish Blue Division in Russia in 1943. Really interesting topic as East Front battles go. It's quite a large game. We have a components list here. It is no, we don't. But this is something I could pull it off the shelf. This is something like 5 counter sheets. Not a hope in a million years of getting 5 organized counter sheets back in that box. No chance. Forget it. Next up is Stalingrad Pocket. Now, there's a Stalingrad Pocket 2, which is going to be higher rated. This is the original. This is a Masahiro Yamazaki game. Yeah, apparently. Series designer Dean Essie, game designer Masahiro Yamazaki. I don't think I knew that. Then again, I've never played Stalingrad Pocket. This is a very well-regarded game. Again, I think Stalingrad Pocket 2 is a little more well-regarded. Re-implemented by Paulus's Sixth Army. Huh. This is another one of those random re-implemented buys that you get on BGG some of the time. This is why you got to be careful with this site, folks. Yeah, and this game's supposed to be really good. So it sounds like this was published by Kokusai and Oriflamme. That's a French publisher, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah. Kokusai obviously is Japanese. So we have a Japanese edition, an English edition, and a French edition. Okay. So none of that is surprising. If you're going to go for Stalingrad Pocket, you probably want to go for Stalingrad Pocket 2. Jeff, I can tell you that some of the East Front games have the Spanish Blue Division in them. At least, pretty sure it's Encased Blue, actually. But that's one counter, right? So not quite the same. All right, this Hallowed Ground. This is Gettysburg. Big Gettysburg game in the Regimental sub-series. This was one of the latter RSS games, as I recall. And it's on a map that I think is perfectly good. I don't like the counter design here, but this is not like screamingly terrible or anything like that. And this is the immediate ancestor of Last Chance for Victory, which, in my opinion, is the single definitive Gettysburg game at this scale, in my opinion. And there's a number of reasons I'll say that. Thomas Prowl is correct. This was the first one. I think there were multiple printings of this, though. Not according to this. I know it's in a 3-inch box because I've seen the box. The counters look well, I can't go by the dates, so I don't know. There may have been multiple printings of this thing. So, and a slight graphical update in the middle. I could be wrong about that, but I can tell you that I find nothing particularly horrific about the map or counters here, and it's a very solid game. I think, what does this cost? Yeah, it's not like you're getting it dirt cheap, right? Where you could you could like get this and play it with line of battle instead of spending $300 on Last Chance for Victory. The great thing about Last Chance for Victory is the enormous selection of scenarios and a tremendous designer notes and historical background and all that stuff. That game has no equal in that department. And I think it's a great looking game too. Now, I do like the GBACW counters just flatly better, but it's still a great looking game. Next up is Africa. This is SCS Africa. This is the Northern African Campaign. We have a picture of the whole map because I'm a little confused about what they mean by Northern African Campaign. I think it's one map. And this sounds like, all right, so September 1940 to December 1942. So this thing actually covers quite a lot, right? There's a lot of back and forth in that time period. There's, a Battle Axe and Brevity and Crusader, and then Rommel shows up and all kinds of stuff happen. And Tobruk's in there, and all kinds of stuff happen in this time period. So this sounds like a pretty good value package. Now, there's an Africa 2 that we'll see that, again, I'd probably recommend that over this one, just for the graphics upgrade, if nothing else. But and this is a kind of cool cover on a French edition from Oriflamme too. There's that gradient thing that I'm not a fan of that piece of graphic design. You can make it work how I do it on the title card sometimes, but I think I'm not sure it's working here. Now, this I owned in the past. This is in their Quiet Fields 2. This is a Civil War Brigade Antietam. This is a great battle to play, but a difficult battle to model. Wow. Look at that. Wow. There's a lot of saturation on this map. Holy cow. Yeah. So, I mean, was that the reason I got rid of it? No, I got rid of it because I didn't think I was going to play it, and I probably should have kept it. But just wow, this is a lot. Okay, this is a lot of color on this map, and you can see that these brown units on all this brown on the map just kind of blend in. The blue Union units stand out better, but the units don't pop off the map like it should. The game itself looks very good, as Thomas mentions, but that's some. You really do need some kind of eye protection when you're playing that. So in this case, Stigler, I can't even argue with. Yeah, this ain't the ugliest one. I'm not sure we're going to get to that. Heights of Courage, Battle for the Golan Heights. This is 1973 Arab-Israeli War SCS system game. Not interested in this topic at all. So this isn't something that this is nuts. Or you sand your plexiglass first. Bust out the orbital sander and buff that right out. Heights of Courage. For those interested in this topic, it's a decent looking game. Attractive counters, attractive map, SCS rules, going to be easy to play. I'm just sticking to my guns on I'm not getting an Arab-Israeli war game because I don't want to become interested in the Arab-Israeli war. I almost bought Bar-Lev at Compass Expo. I might buy Bar-Lev next year at Compass Expo, but if I don't, I'll still think about it. It's a really nice package. This is more tactical than that. That's the whole conflict, pretty much. Moving on, 3 Battles of Manassas. Now, the 3 Battles of Manassas are the 2 historical battles of Manassas and the hypothetical one that's also in the game. This is a Civil War Brigade Civil War Brigade series. So it's just quite a lot here, and I think it's 3 maps, 2 counter sheets. And as I recall, it's in a 3-inch box. Maybe it's not. Maybe it's in a flatter box. Maybe it's in that 1.5-inch box. That's possible. So this is David Powell, and our very own Thomas Prowl here, co-designers on this thing. In fact, Thomas is credited as the game designer here. and not Dave Powell. So I don't know what's up with that, but there may be an antecedent game that Dave Powell was credited on. I don't know. It gets complicated sometimes. Carl, thanks for stopping by. Carl says 1-inch box. And once I said it out loud, of course, no, it really wasn't in the 3-inch box, was it? It was really in that standard, like 1.25 inch or whatever it is, gamer's box. So I'm obviously thinking of something else. I'm looking forward to Valley of Tears as well. If I'm going to break the rule on Arab-Israeli wars, that's actually going to be the one, because in that case, my admiration of BCS is going to override my disinclination to get involved in another topic. None But Heroes. This is Line of Battles version of the Battle of Antietam. So regimental scale. I've played this and it's fabulous. It is unfortunately out of print, which sucks. And it goes for this $165 is not a bad price at all, by the way. This goes for way too much money. I managed to swing a deal for my copy, which is never leaving my hands. Absolutely ever. No, under no circumstances am I getting rid of any of the Line of Battle games. This is a great game. I will be delighted to play this again at some point. And I wish they would reprint it. I don't believe they will, but I wish they would. So, the takeaway for that is, if this is probably true for the gamers, but it's definitely true for MMP, is if you think you're going to want it, just buy it. And in the case of the MMP anyway, because it's going to go out of print, chances of them reprinting it, unless it's an ASL core module, are relatively small. And even if it is an ASL core module, you'll have probably a 2 to 5 year window when it's not available, and you can charge basically whatever price you would like for it. So that's my MMP advice. You're welcome, Multimen Publishing. Sicily, Triumph, and Folly. Now, this is a 2-map game on the invasion of Sicily in 1943. And that is a topic of special interest to me. It is a great game. There is also a Sicily 2, which is rescaled. So this is 2.5 miles to the hex. Sicily 2 is 3.5 miles to the hex. They are quite different games, but I'm not really sure that one is necessarily better than the other. Certainly Sicily 2 is smaller and it's easier to deal with because it's smaller, and it plays faster because it's smaller. But I've played both of them, and I think Sicily 1 is a great game as well. I had a lot of fun with this. I think both of these games are worthwhile. This, unfortunately, is a bitch to get your hands on for anything. These prices are not that bad. Some Canadian fellas wants $200 for it, but this is Canadian money. That's practically free. 75 euros does not, I mean, if you're paying in euros, does not seem too bad to me. Mostly these prices look like they're in the 120 to 175 range, which is what I would expect to be asked to pay for this. I'm glad I didn't have to ask. I got a copy that was missing components. It was missing the marker sheets and all the booklets and stuff, but it had the maps and the unit counters in it. And I can print the other stuff off of Gamer's Archive. Again, this is another one that's never leaving my hands, so I'm going to absolutely play this again. I wanted a play copy, and it was, that it was unpunched was nice, only because I didn't have to check it to make sure it was all there. Fallschirmjäger, the airborne assault on Fortress Holland. So I don't know a lot about this. I assume this is capture of Rotterdam and The Hague. This is a TCS game. Interesting cover in that it is kind of a fairly different looking cover than we see on a lot of their other games of the period. This is Al Wambold off of Dean Essig series design. I don't know that I have a lot of knowledge about this. Map looks like a Dean map. I'm fine with that. The counters are probably fine. Well, that's fascinating. Am I wrong about this? Is this SCS? This is SCS, not TCS. I'm thinking of Screaming Eagles, I'm sure. Yes, this is SCS. So, so it'll be a lot easier to play than I was expecting. And that explains why the map looks like a more typical DNSing map style as well, because almost all of the SCS games have maps that were either done by Dean or maybe by others in the Dean style, except for Day of Days, which is a Nico Scooby map, and which is a map I do not like, even though I like absolutely everything else that I have seen from Nico. I don't know a lot about this one clearly since I got the series wrong. My voice is I can we're gonna move fast here. Um, but we're gonna take the whole 2 hours, so we're not gonna end. I don't feel my voice will hold up for going late. Don't the Fallschirmjägers take a tram during the game? That sounds kind of interesting, actually. I have no idea. I've never owned this. I've never particularly looked at it, as you might be able to tell by the fact that I misrepresented it immediately. Decent looking game. Reasonably interesting topic. All right, next up. Now we're getting into the big boys here. And we do mean big boys. DAC, campaign in North Africa. Not campaign for North Africa, but in North Africa. 1997. This is the first one. This was revised in DAC 2. The two games are mostly the same. In fact, you can play DAC 2 with the DAC 1 components easily enough. And you can download the updated rules and stuff from the Gamers Archive website. I think there was a little bit of a graphical upgrade between the two games, but not huge. I mean, it's a big desert. It's going to look like a big desert, right? I have not played DAC. I would like to. It is on the to-do list. This is roughly 3 or 4 counter sheets and 5 maps. So relatively low density as OCS games go. And relatively large map footprint. And it's linear too. It's map. So it's something like 12 feet long, I want to say. Something like 3 feet by 12 or 13 feet as the footprint. It's a linear map. Does somebody have a we'll see if somebody has the DAC 2 maps laid out. Here's some folks just playing a scenario. Highly regarded game. You're going to see that the prices here, these prices are a lot better than you'll see on eBay, for example. But this dude wants a new copy for $350. I think that's a little high, but the $200 that this guy wants is about what you would expect for DAC 1. DAC 2 will be more expensive. Carl says 10 feet wide. That sounds right. Did I say 12? 10 feet sounds right. If you think about it, it's 5 maps that are just a little under 2 feet wide. So 10 feet is pretty much right on. Thunder at the Crossroads, 2nd edition. This is the other one that I was thinking of, actually. And this is the revision of the old Gettysburg game. 1993. Map's a bit intense, but 1993. What do you want? Yes, exactly. 22 by 5. So this is Civil War Brigades. Yeah, Civil War Brigade series. Revision of the older Thunder at the Crossroads game. If you're going to pick this up. So I think there's reasons assuming Gettysburg's a battle you're interested in, right? I think there's reasons to buy this over RSS or lineup battle because the scale's different. This is going to be easier and faster playing, still not small, but easier and faster playing than a regimental battle would be. That's a huge project to play out Gettysburg at the regimental level. I can tell you because we did it. And even Antietam as well. Antietam's also quite a large battle. At the brigade level, it becomes a lot more manageable. I suspect you could play this over the course of a convention if you applied yourself. Mike, that seems to happen every time we do one of these, actually. All right, Brazen Chariots. If you go watch my playthrough videos on Brazen Chariots, I think you're going to get a pretty lukewarm vibe from me on that. I have taken a considerable shine to BCS since then. Now, the rules are different now than when we played. And some of those changes are significant, and some of those changes are fairly subtle. But the net effect of the new BCS rules is that I think it's a I don't want to say vast improvement because I think there was still a lot to like in the old rules too, but a lot of the rough edges have been smoothed away in the new version of 2 point whatever we're on now of the BCS rules. I will absolutely play this again. We will, in fact, we're talking about doing it after last Blitzkrieg. I think this is great. Um, yeah, I mean, it's a good scale. Brigade scale is a good scale for Civil War battles. And I don't want to say that we don't see that many games at that scale anymore because we do. But a lot of air gets sucked out of the room by the regimental scale games because they're so much bigger, right? Iggy Crutel is playing Ericor in preparation for Valley of Tears. Awesome. I've got Ericor set up right here, and I haven't touched it yet because we're just not ready to do that. We are getting into the fairly highly rated games now. Now this says multi-man, and this is not a gamer's product. This is a multi-man product. I know it says the gamers on it. I guess we're combining this with multi-man, but which wasn't my intention. It was my intention to stop with the gamers, but then again, here we are. Next is It Never Snows. This is a 5-map Operation Market Garden game. Designer Dean Essig in the SCS Standard Combat Series. This is the game with the screaming pink counters, which are genuinely weird. These are weird too, and a little bit hard to read. There's very few cases in which I have significant problems with the counters or the counter design. In an SCS game, this is an example where some of these counters I really don't like. Some of them are fine, but like this white print on tan, that's that's just the contrast problem. That shouldn't have been done. These are hard to read in physical counters too. I've got this game. I haven't played it. I'll eventually punch it and eventually play it. I love Operation Market Garden games. There are smaller scenarios here too. So you're not necessarily obligated to play out the entire Market Garden campaign. One True Flem says best BCS game out there. I assume we're talking about Brazen Chariots. There's a tremendous amount of play value in Brazen Chariots. I'll tell you that there's a lot of scenarios in there that are not even Crusader. So there's a lot of play value there, and you got a lot of open space to maneuver. Unlike in the Bulge, where it's a lot more constrained from a terrain standpoint. Ardennes, this is SCS Bulge. Speaking of the Bulge, this is a very highly regarded game. Was this redone? I think this might have gotten multiple printings, which may or may not be reflected on the BGG site. But this is a very highly regarded game. SCS Game of the Bulge. What is it? 2 maps? It is 2 maps, 2 counter sheets. So relatively low density. I think the map is fine. I think the counters that I've seen are fine. I don't think there's any real significant headaches here. Good contrast on these counters. It's the white print that creates issues sometimes if the counters are too light. Here's Yom Kippur. Sinai 1973. This is SCS as well. Once again, I've officially disavowed any interest in Arab-Israeli war material, and this is one of those things. So I really have basically no information about that other than what I've seen and absorbed by osmosis. Apparently, this was in Command magazine in Japan, which is pretty cool because that's a thing that still happens. Oh, cool. Carl says that SCS Ardennes 2 is in development and playtesting right now. I think that is great. Well, that's true too. 50th anniversary, October 23. That's a good point. I am not sure what that noise was, but we'll just roll with it since we're done in 7 minutes, or as close to it as I can manage. We're going to get through this list. So great news on SCS Ardennes 2. I think that'll be very popular, and it's a highly regarded game and should sell very well. Enemy at the Gates is the second game in the operational combat series, and this is the game that really kind of made significant changes that put us on the path that we're on now with OCS, as far as paying for the supply like we do and place trace and supply like we do. A lot of changes have since been made to the system. Other than that, but you can still take this and play with the current rules, and it's no problem. And in fact, this goes for decent money, in part because while it has been replaced by a new expanded updated game, that expanded updated game is Case Blue, which goes for $600 punched. So most people aren't willing to pay that. So they try and rustle up a copy of Empire, this Enemy at the Gates, which is at least half of Case Blue, right at the Stalingrad part. So it gives them, kind of the next best thing to a Case Blue OCS experience without having to spend $600 on a punch copy of Case Blue, right? So correct. Brazen Chariots does include both Brevity and Battle Axe and the German counterattacks, as well as Crusader. Ooh, number one priority. I mean, I personally have other priorities than that. I wanted to see all kinds of stuff, including BCS Market Garden, which I am all over, by the way. I am a minute one pre-order on that. All right, next is Guderian's Blitzkrieg 2. Now, there have been two printings of this, which are not really distinguished by like an edition number or anything like that. They're just kind of called the 2001 and I believe the 2012 edition. The differences between the two are small. The counters look a little bit different, but not in a particularly meaningful way. The second edition is up there, second version here is kind of updated to better integrate into Case Blue or with Case Blue. This is a fantastic game. I have played this by itself and in conjunction with Case Blue, although I was not in the Guderian's Blitzkrieg sector. I was in the Case Blue sector. This is a fantastic game. It's huge, it's meaty, it's six maps, but they're not all full-size maps. There's basically 3 full-size maps and I think 3 roughly half-size maps. All the rest of the game, now there's still some really highly regarded ones. The top ones here are weird, I gotta tell you. Case Blue's not on this list because of the way BGG ranks it. So why? I don't know. That doesn't make any sense to me. But Guderian's Blitzkrieg 2, I will. The BCS France Sedan or whatever it is game also sounds really interesting. But I am all over Market Garden, whatever. So additional maps. So Enemy at the Gates maps do connect to GB2. I mean, the Case Blue versions of those maps do anyway. So there were like revised maps sent out for GB2 because the color matching wasn't what they were. What is Dean or somebody was not happy with the color matching or something like that. I have like 2 extra map sets for Guderian's Blitzkrieg 2, in addition to the 2 copies on the shelf I have of Guderian's Blitzkrieg 2. So great game, highly rated. Stalingrad Pocket 2. I believe they found some of these in Ziplocs that went in the Ziploc sale. So no turn. I'm excited about no turning back as well. I will point out, but I talked to Chip Farr about it quite a while ago now, and it seemed obvious that they were kind of taking their time with it. So I'll wait. It's cool. It's all good. In any case, Stalingrad Pocket 2, if you're interested in this topic, it's a very highly regarded game. You're interested in this topic, I'd go for this one. Prices are high-ish, but not bananas. $56 for a new copy. That's not bad at all. Here's Case Blue. I'll be honest, I feel like this is overrated, to be honest. But part of that is it's kind of magnum opus status, right? As this enormous edifice that people that occasionally actually play. And I've played it and I had a great time, and it was my first OCS game, and boy, that was dumb, but and here we are. So it's a great game. I really feel like we'd have been better served by releasing it in 2 pieces. in releasing it because it's so big, it's so expensive even when it came out, and now it's even more expensive. I think we'd have been better off had it been released as Enemy at the Gates 2 in Case Blue, and Case Blue is the southern part with the Caucasus and stuff. That's my main criticism of it, is just kind of it's so big that when it went out of print, it became so expensive that it's basically impossible to get without spending $500+. And if you get it for $500, you're getting a deal. So there's some truth to this. Probably all the people that just bought it for $700. Somebody bought an unpunched copy for $900 on the Facebook Marketplace not long ago, and that's a lot. Not in the shrink wrap, but unpunched. That's a lot, and that person is probably going to give it a 10. I got to tell you, I gave it an 8. I think it's really good, but the size of it is such that you're not going to be playing this every week. Most people do not have the space for this. Even our guys do not really have the space for this, right? This ate 2 4x8 tables, and those weren't big enough. We had to have extensions on both tables to accommodate all this stuff. So it's a giant project. But there's also Vassal. So the Mighty Endeavor. This is a fabulous game. I have only played it solitaire, and I had a great time. There's video on this, and I'm super whiny in the video. I have since come around to this game. I think it's a great game. It's easy to play. It's SCS. 8 pages of rules. There's a fair amount of additional rules overhead in this, but it's SCS, so not that much. It's like an extra 6 pages. It plays really well and really and relatively quickly, and really allows you to kind of explore different strategic options. And I say strategic intentionally here. You want to invade somewhere other than Normandy. You want to invade at Calais, or you want to invade in Brittany, or you want to invade somewhere else. Go ahead. This game gives you the flexibility to explore that. So does the classic Fortress Europa, by the way. But this is a lot easier to play and less bloated than Fortress Europa. There's 2 editions of this. There's this second edition or revised edition that comes with an East Front expansion, which basically adds a little map for Brittany, which is great. And then a whole East Front map where you play the Battle for Germany style. You're playing the West Front Germans versus you're playing the West Front Germans and the East Front Soviets, and then the other players playing the West Front Allies and the East Front Germans. And you can do that, but I frankly would rather play Battle for Germany if I'm going to do that, because it's a lot less of it's less of a project. I think part of the charm of this game is it's not a particularly big project. And if you're going to play it with the extension map and the extra player and all that other stuff, then you're kind of turning it into a bit of a project. So I'm not the biggest fan of the expansion either, but the game's great. And if you have the revised edition, you at least get the extra little rest of Brittany, which is nice. Shockingly highly rated OCS Burma. Not sure I grok this completely, because this is now I have this. I have never played it. There's a lot of people that really like it and a lot of people that don't. This is a very divisive game, and that's why I say I'm surprised it's rated in like the top 4 here. It's the only to date, it's not for long, but to date, it is the only Pacific OCS game, unless you count Korea, but that's the Korean War, right? So I think what the ratings are the BGG ratings are telling us here is that OCS players don't go to Board Game Geek and rate these games on Board Game Geek. I'm not saying it doesn't deserve a high rating. I suspect that it does, because I like OCS, but it's weird that this is number 4. It's just as weird, if not weirder, that this is number 3. This is OCS Korea. Now, OCS Korea is very good. I've played this, enjoyed it. It's actually a very good starter OCS game, because in the early part of the campaign, you kind of got to feel out the way the supplies are going to flow, and there's really not a lot of unit density. Later on, there's more, especially when the Chinese come in with a literal wall of units. But it's a 3-map game. Very good game. It's highly recommended. I believe it's still in print. Weird here because it's so highly rated. And it's been hanging around in stock at Multi-Man for quite a long time. But again, if of the available games right now, available OCS games, this is the best starter game. Smolensk is no longer available. Reluctant Enemies obviously is no longer available. Tunisia 2 is no longer available. This is the best starter game that they have in print right now. And usually when it's on sale, they put this on sale too. All right, number one actually is Tunisia. I guess we're counting Tunisia 2 here as well, which for some reason is. So watch this. Tunisia 2 is only listed as multi-man publishing, where a bunch of other stuff is listed as both for whatever reason. So this is the original Tunisia, and I guess I have this. I haven't played it. I played Tunisia 2, and it's very good, and it's a pretty good OCS starter game as well. But I would prefer Tunisia 2. However, Tunisia 2 is out of print. It's hard to get. You should be able to get Tunisia 1 pretty inexpensively. Let's look. Well, here's a copy A. What is A? Acceptable in Spain? I don't know. 40 euros. Quite a few of these. Yeah, here's one for 35 bucks. Maybe punched, but who cares? You can get this relatively inexpensively. And really the major update is an order of battle updates for Tunisia 2. It's certainly not the most attractive box I've ever seen, but it is pretty far from the least attractive box I've ever seen. Okay, so we have, in fact, run 5 minutes late. I'm going to drink this. And I'm going to mention that we do have an unboxing this week scheduled for Thursday. That game is La Bataille de Mont Saint Jean. So it's kind of a big unboxing. So check that out if you are interested. Turn this back on now. I got very little clipping done. Bandwidth is such, my personal mental bandwidth at this point, recovery and all that is such that I stopped clipping basically once I started talking and going through this stuff. And yeah, order battle problems, I understand, but if you're learning OCS for 35 bucks, I think it's a good buy. Otherwise, if you want to play the game seriously, then yeah, get the second one. But the only other thing I have scheduled right now is that video on Thursday. I hope to get the after action report done. So it is Thanksgiving Thursday, so bear that in mind as well. We have had a pretty good night here stats wise, I believe. Let me give you a quick report on that before we go. Yeah, we have had an extremely steady 120 to 130 all night. Which is great. I really do appreciate, by the way, folks that continue to come and hang out with me in these chats. I'd like to be more articulate about that, but I'm not feeling articulation right now. So we got through the gamers. I picked the gamers because I felt like it was going to be an easy topic because it's only there's the total list of games is 65 games. Whereas if I had to pick well, we did SPI, and I had to pick the top, 50, and then another 5 or 6 games. So we did a lot of good talking. We have a number of illustrious guests, including Thomas Prowl and Carl Fung, stopped by tonight. So thanks for that, as well as all of our usual suspects as well. So I hope everybody has a great night. We will be back next week with Counterclipping show number 100. I think we are going to do one giveaway during that show since it's 100 after all. And that does mean that I've been doing this for since I've missed, I think, 2 or 3 of them. I guess we have, in fact, been doing this for 2 years now. So it is a continuous source of wonderment and amazement to me that folks that we've managed to kind of build this community around this show. And I really appreciate folks continuing to show up. And remember, like the video and super chat and all that, that's great. But you are supporting the chat just by coming and participating in the discussion. And I do appreciate it that when things in the chat started to get a little contentious and I said, cool it, we cooled it. I am happy with that. I am glad I didn't have to give everybody one of those. So everybody have a great night. I am going to drink some more water and then probably crash. Because we are working tomorrow and, in fact, on Wednesday as well, but we're working from home. Obviously, we're not going into the office anytime soon. So, and my wife's still sicker than me, right? She was kind of sick when I got home and then probably brought COVID in the house. And now she was sick and also has COVID. So she is considerably worse than me. I am 85%. But talking all this time is a bit much on, considering that like the worst remaining symptom is like sinus and sore throat. Talking all this time has been a bit much, but not as bad as the CSR meeting yesterday. Progress is excellent. We will have news in late December on that. Everybody have a great night. We'll see you all again next week. Don't forget that tomorrow we are on Dan's channel with whatever topic we decide 5 minutes before the show. So everybody tune in then at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and we'll see everybody here back next week.